Hello everybody, welcome to Saxon's Hydrosphere. I'm Saxon and I love music and I love movies, and with this channel I wanted to create a space where both music and movie lovers can coexist in the same space. So it's been a while, I think it's been about a month now since my last video. I've just had a lot going on, but I'm ready to get back into the swing of things now, and today I'd like to get back into everything with a review of the new Coheed and Cambria album, Vaxis II, A Window of the Waking Mind. So after delays and nearly a year since the first single was released, Coheed and Cambria have finally released this new album, A Window of the Waking Mind, which is chapter 2 in the ongoing 5-part series of the Vaxis storyline. So in the grand scheme of things, Coheed and Cambria weren't a band that I was overly familiar with until they released Shoulders as the leading single to this album last year. I'd heard like a small handful of their songs here and there, but I'd never dived into their discography until this album was on the horizon. But at the same time, my excitement for this album was huge because as the follow-up singles Rise Naya Nasha and The Liars Club came out, I had dived a little bit deeper into their earlier material, and for me, these new songs were among some of the best in their discography. Let me start out with the good and say that I did really enjoy the more poppy elements across this album, especially with the catchiness in the choruses. Coheed have always had a really unique way in blending their prog rock style with a lot of pop-isms in there, and this goes back even further to their earlier albums. I mean, look at A Favor House Atlantic is a classic example of this done really well. But I would say that Vaxis II takes this even further than any of their previous records to date. And like I said, for the most part, I really enjoyed that, especially with how memorable these choruses are. I think if you were to listen to this album just once, you would easily walk away and remember 5 or 6 of these choruses off the top of your head, no problem. And the production really excels the overall quality as well. I would argue that this is the best produced Coheed and Cambria record, and I think that it's been carefully crafted in a way that really does serve the songs and this story exceptionally well. Something else of note is that I think Claudio's voice is the best it has ever been on this album. His delivery is sharp and really emotive, and just the conviction behind his voice makes him sound even more powerful than he ever has before. However, both the vocals and the pop elements on this album are kind of a double-edged sword for me, because while the choruses are fantastic and Claudio is incredible, as I said, there's quite a heavy use of auto-tune in quite a lot of the songs, which I couldn't really get behind for the most part. After several listens now, it's not something that I'm as bothered with as I was on my first listen, but it's still something that kind of doesn't really sit with me. It's clearly a stylistic choice for the story and the atmosphere, especially with how over the top and obvious it is. But for me, Claudio is a highly skilled and very diverse singer, and I can't help but want less auto-tune and more of the diverse and quite theatrical singing that Claudio is pretty well known for. I think the song Bad Man is the best example of this. The mid-tempo chorus has so much attitude and dirt in it that it's really addictive, but the verses are just saturated in auto-tune, and again I can't help wonder what it would sound like if less of that was used and more emotive singing instead. In terms of the pacing, I feel like this record is kind of broken up into 3 sections. The first third of the album starts and plays it relatively safe with the very anthemic Beautiful Losers, a song that gives me a lot of early Coheed and Cambria vibes, and I enjoyed this one a lot as kind of a love letter to all the underdogs and outcasts out there. Which is then followed up by 2 of the singles we had from this album, Comatose and Shoulders. The former still boasting a lot of early Coheedisms while also setting the stage for a lot of the poppier aspects that will creep in across this record. And Shoulders being an absolute belter of a song full of ballsy riffs and some of the best vocal work of Claudio's career. This is still one of my favourite songs on the album, and I don't think that's ever going to change. The next song, A Disappearing Act, is really when we start diving into these more poppier aspects with a lot of synth and a lot of syncopated drum patterns. And I think this song is the best example of mixing in all of these mixing all these elements together really well in full service of the band. Love Murder One is where I'd say the second third of this album starts, and it's also where things start to lose their way a little bit for me. I didn't love this one. I found it to be quite sluggish in its pacing, and I don't know, it didn't really do much for me. And the same can be said for the next track, Blood, in terms of its pacing. I do enjoy this one a little bit better than Love Murder One, just for how it fits in with the story and the emotional delivery, but I still think the pacing really kind of dies down a little bit here. But The Liars Club picks the pace right back up again, and I do still love this song. Lots of urgency, lots of energy. It's got a lot of integrity behind it and really in keeping with the rest of the tone across the album. Bad Man is next, which, as I said before, is a frustrating one for me. I wouldn't say it's my least favourite on the album because I do love that chorus. I just feel it could have been a much stronger track if it was just a little bit more focused, a little more refined, and wasn't bouncing the tone around so much. Which brings me to the song Our Love, which rounds off the middle third of this album. Really stripped back and very vocal focused, being a really nice palette cleanser to everything that came before and leading really nicely into the final portion of the record. And these last three songs is where the record really picks up for me again and really gives the music and story a lot more room to breathe. Ladders of Supremacy takes the tone in a much darker and more progressive territory and is the first song on this album so far to push past the 3 to 4 minute mark, which really does give the atmosphere a lot more room to breathe and really enables you to be immersed into the song and the story of this album, and flows directly into Rise Nyanasha, which is a song that I absolutely loved when it was released as a single and find even more appreciation in it now with the context of Ladders of Supremacy behind it. It's such a stern tonal shift from its darker predecessor with a lot of swinging rhythms and an incredibly anthemic and really heartwarming chorus. And then finally we come to the 8-minute eponymous closing track, Window of the Waking Mind, a song that is a true testament to Coheed's ability at writing storytelling music. Each section flows so organically into the next, creating a lot of tension, taking you through every single emotion and climaxing with a massive crescendo to then close off with an orchestral reprisal of the Old Flames melody established in Vaxis 1. And that's the album, so while I do feel that a lot of it is great, I just feel that the consistency kind of loses its way a little bit, and I do wish that they had maybe saved one or two of the singles for the actual release, because a lot of the better songs on this album were the singles themselves. As a fairly newer Coheed fan, I'm not sure how the die-hard and the older fans are going to react to this one, but it is definitely worth listening to, and I do actually enjoy it more and more with each listen. I think I just had such high expectations that I was a little bit disappointed off the bat, but there is a lot to love about this album. Right now, I'd say that I do prefer Vaxis 1. My only real issue with that record is I feel like it could have been a little bit shorter, but I'm definitely excited to see where this 5-part Vaxis series is going to go in the future. And as much as some of the experimentation and some of the risks didn't quite land for me, I do appreciate and respect that Coheed and Cambria are kind of just seeing where their music takes them, and not be afraid to take these risks and be themselves and just write what they want to write. That's it for this review today. Thanks for watching, and do go and check out the album and let me know your thoughts. Before I go, I do just want to talk about my Patreon very quickly. I've recently streamlined it and refined it quite a lot, made it a lot more doable with my schedule and a lot more affordable for anybody that does want to take part. And again, I want to thank my patrons that have kind of been really patient waiting for me while I've had this little bit of a break. As I said, I am getting back into everything now, and there's going to be a lot more content on the way soon. So if you did like this video and everything that I do, I would be really grateful if you were to check that out. I'm going to leave you with my song of the day now, and before I recorded this morning, my friend and Twisted Illusion bandmate Matt Jones put out a video on his channel talking all about the darkness. So my song of the day is going to be from their latest album, Motorheart, and it's the song The Power and Glory of Love. I think that album was one of the best records of 2021, and you should go and check out Matt's video on the darkness because it's really cool, and he does these discography deep dives really well. So yeah, it's a good video. So I'll leave a link to that song in the description below, and that's about it for today. I'll see you in the next one.